And so to fall into abundance, as you heard in the reading, to live an abundant experience is to be fulfilled, right? It's to live a life that is fulfilled, a life that is fulfilled, moving freely with the process of life. I move freely with the process of life is one of my favorite affirmations. Moving freely with the process of life means we are moving in a healthy body. We are meeting and being with people that we love. We are having perfect, beautiful, intimate connections with the world, with our Creator, with our loved ones, with our friends. We are feeling purpose-filled in our work or our retirement, in whatever it is that we are doing. We are living life impassioned and fulfilled. So more of that, yes? All right, so falling into abundance. I want to talk about this whole month. We're going to talk about it from all different angles. We're going to talk about, first of all, today I want to get right into what abundance is and what it is not. And I want to talk about all these different angles of looking at living a prosperous life. We have often shied away from that word prosperity or riches or wealth or opulence, right? A lot of people, including myself, years ago, would shy away from those words because they didn't feel spiritual. Let us remember that money is the root of all evil. That quote from the Bible is actually talking about the attachment to the material, placing that above and paramount over an attachment, a connection with the divine. So there is nothing wrong with being able to move freely in this material universe. That's what we are all striving for. So living a life that is fulfilled, that's what we all want. That's what helps us do greater and greater works in the world. And we need that. So let's dive in. So falling into abundance, what is abundance? It is that living life fulfilled. What is it not, though? Sometimes it helps us to really clarify what something is when we look at what it is not. What it is not about how much money you can acquire. It's not about a title or a status or what many people have called success in this world. It's definitely not about circumstances. Well, if I get that job or if this happens, then I'm prosperous or I'm abundant. So it's not about circumstances. It's not bound by precedent. Dr. Ernest Holmes said principle is not bound by precedent. And what does that mean? Just because someone says you can't have a class in the summer in New Thought because no one will come, well, that's not true. It only is true if you believe it's true. When I first came into New Thought as a minister, a baby minister, I didn't know the things that I was supposed to be worried about, the things that I was supposed to, and I use that tongue-in-cheek, kind of lighthearted, the supposed to, but there was this kind of unspoken, well, I shouldn't say unspoken, there was this definite undertow, this undercurrent within conversations with ministers that I learned later that I didn't know when I first became a minister, and that was, let's see, no, people don't come to service in the summer. They don't attend classes in the summertime, and a good sized class is 25 people. Well, my first year in ministry or second year, I had 65 people in a class. We had just in this community, Carolina Center for Spiritual Awakening, in our first year, we had our biggest Sunday ever was Rock and Roll Sunday. That was a lot of fun, but it was in the summer, it was the middle of the summer, and we had almost 100 people or maybe more, I don't remember, but it was our biggest attendance of our community, right? So it's about what we choose to believe in. It's not about the track record that's led up to here. It's if we choose to say that has power, then it has power. If it doesn't, if we don't say it has power, it doesn't in our experience, in our creation, and we are co-creating our experience. So when you look at the things that you have built your life around, are they things that are precedents that were set, ideas that were held by your family or your community, spiritual community, your church growing up, or your culture, anything that influenced what it meant to be prosperous, what it meant to be spiritual, and could those two things go together? Right? So it's good to look at the precedents that we've placed in our own lives, because a lot of times they are stumbling blocks that we've placed there ourselves. And we get to choose, do I believe in that or not? It, not it. Is this something that rings true for me? And as far as the circumstances, I remember early on in ministry, I had a member trying to convince me that we and the board that we needed to cease and desist from tithing until our finances were better. He was a businessman, and he was like, we got too much money going out, and we need to bring more in before we can have some go out. And I was like, well, you're looking at this like a corporation instead of a spiritual community following spiritual laws that govern the universe. And we fully believe that as you give, you receive, and we are not going to stop tithing because money has taken a dip. And he says, well, I contribute quite a lot to this community, and if you don't, then I'm leaving. And I'm okay. And he did. Guess what happened? Within a month, 5 people came. So if you broke it down, it was somewhere around $800 a month that he was giving, and that's a substantial gift. That was a substantial gift for our community, and a lot of the board members were cringing a little bit as we didn't back down, right, from his demands. And yet, when he left, these 5 people, totally random people that didn't know each other but were attracted to what we were doing in the world, came to be part of our community. 5 people began tithing $1,000 a month. Talk about, wow, releasing and allowing. We released something that was not in alignment with what our teaching says we're here to be and do, which is to trust that God is our only source. And we're not going to stop giving back to that source that feeds us out of fear or worry. And so we didn't, and we were blessed over and over and over. So I'm telling you these stories to make a point that abundance is not bound by precedent. It is not conditional on circumstances. We have a pretty big election coming up on Tuesday, right? So your happiness, my happiness, our world's happiness, I know it feels like it depends on this election. I mean, no matter which side you're voting on or how you're voting, there's a lot of people that would say, yes, my happiness depends on this election. And I'm encouraging you to know that it doesn't. That we can create, we are going to continue to create, to co-create a world that works for everyone regardless of circumstances. Because why? Because God is bigger than that. The divine that created everything out of itself is bigger than any election. It's bigger than any financial climate. It's bigger than the stock exchange. It's bigger. And so our job as co-creators is to trust in that. So when I say fall into abundance, I'm really saying surrender into trusting the laws that govern the universe are always for you and working for you and through you every day in every way. So trusting in that. What we agree with in our mind, we are inviting into our lives. Can you get that? What you agree with in your mind, you're inviting into your life. So if you agree in your mind that my only source is God, my good comes from the divine that created me and all creation, and I am one with it, and I allow it to bless me now. What we believe in our minds, agree with in our minds, we invite into our lives. I promise you it works. So what is falling? Falling into abundance. So what is the word falling? Let's think about that. Immediately you might think of, well, an accident, falling down, losing your balance, making a mistake. So that wasn't really where I was going with the idea of falling into abundance, but let's look at that for a second, because can you learn from it when you lose your balance? Can you learn from it and yes, you can, but will you learn from it when you lose your balance and you go from feeling balanced and centered and one with the divine to someone in your life or your experience or on the TV, and you lose your balance a little bit? Can you learn from that? Will you learn from that and move back into a place of centeredness? Excuse me. But really, what I was going for with the title Falling into Abundance is more of like, you remember the free falls, the trust falls that you've done probably in groups before, in team building exercises where you just fall backwards and a group of people catch you. I'm a big person, so those always scared the bejeebies out of me, because I'm thinking, I ain't strong enough to catch all this. But I've done it, and it's always amazing when people catch me, right, in those exercises. So that's really what I'm thinking of with this title, Fall into Abundance. Can we trust fall? Can we surrender? And that word used to bug me. I used to think, I'm not giving up my power. It's taken me a long time to be an empowered woman, an empowered person. I'm not going to surrender it. You're not surrendering it outside of you. You're surrendering into the divine presence flowing through you. So trust fall, surrender into the abundance that is the freedom to live a life fulfilled. That's what we're talking about. So I also think of, when I think of surrendering, I think of, and I think of fall, I can't help but think of Freddie the Leaf. Now, if you don't know the story of Freddie the Leaf, I encourage you to get this sweet little book that's good for kids, adults. It's good for all of us. And it's really to help people deal with and process and embrace the whole ebb and flow, the life and death, the cycle of life. But I love the story of Freddie. Here's this leaf. His name is Freddie. He has a friend named Daniel. And Daniel's the wise leaf. And Daniel's always telling Freddie, well, this is what we call spring. And, feel that warm breeze. And we're here now it's summer, and we're here to provide shade for the little old couple down below us, or the kids playing below. And so Daniel is sort of Freddie's confidant and friend. And then fall rolls around, and leaves start to fall. And Freddie starts to freak out. He's like, what's happening now, Daniel? And he's like, well, this is part of the cycle. We're all going to let go of this branch that we're on eventually, and we're going to let go, and we're going to be go back to the earth. And Freddie's like, I don't want to do that. No, I like it here. I like this branch. This branch is home. I don't really want to leave it. I understand it. You've taught me well. I understand my leaf, my branch life. I don't want to leave it. Totally paraphrasing Freddie the Leaf right now. But so he's really happy where he is. You get my point. He doesn't want to fall into the new. He's like, no, thank you. I like it right here. But finally, as life has it, a breeze comes along and shakes Daniel from the branch, and Daniel falls, smiling in sweet repose, looking up at Freddie. Bye for now, Freddie. Until there's no one left on this branch but Freddie. And it's getting cold. So it says Freddie was all alone. The only leaf on his branch. The first snow fell that morning. It was soft and white and gentle. And at dawn, the wind came that took Freddie from his branch. It didn't hurt at all. He felt himself float quietly and softly downward. As he fell, he saw the whole tree for the first time. Freddie landed on a clump of snow, and it somehow felt soft and even warm. In this new position, he was more comfortable than he had ever been. He was more comfortable than he'd ever been. What he was so afraid of, that letting go process, didn't even hurt and was actually easy. We build it up in our minds, don't we? That the letting go, the falling into trust. We build it up it's so scary, it's so terrifying to lean into the unknown. Oh, there's the cricket. I have a cricket in here. I can't seem to find it. I'm just going to embrace the cricket. Okay, I heard a cricket. You're here again in a minute. It comes. She is in here in the morning, in the evening, in the day. He's not. Okay. All right. Where was I? So Freddie his trust falling. Right. He finally learns to fall in, and that it wasn't as hard as he thought. And so trusting the process of life is really trusting the cycles. It's trusting the cycle of comfort and discomfort. That's what we're being called to do. Is to trust in this life. Is to trust the process of life, that there's a divine flow moving through it. I gave a talk a few months back or weeks back, I don't remember now, about the pattern of perfection inherent in all of creation. That's what we're trusting in. We're not trusting in a certain outcome of an election or a certain personality of a person. We're trusting in the pattern of perfection running through all of creation. And trusting that process includes trusting the cycle of comfort and discomfort. Comfort and discomfort, contraction and expansion. Without contraction and expansion, our heart couldn't do its job. Our lungs couldn't do their jobs. We wouldn't be alive. So we're being called to trust the process of life, that pattern running through all of life that is perfection, that includes the cycle of comfort and discomfort. Trusting, that saying that this too shall pass. But have you ever thought about the fact that when you say that, this too shall pass, you're not just saying, oh, this yucky part here that I don't like the way it feels, but also the bliss moments, they pass too. It's all a cycle. It's all a cycle, and we get the opportunity to release control of how we think it has to be all the time. Release it, because that's where our stress comes from, is holding on and forcing and forcing and forcing. Or as Rumi says, cut the chains to hold you prisoner to the world of attachment. Cut the chains that hold you prisoner to the world of attachment. It's the attachment to money That is the error way of thinking. It's the attachment to a certain outcome and a situation that is where we create stress in our lives. It is that attachment, is that if you pull a rubber band without being pulled is pretty loose and loosey-goosey, and but if you pull it tight, it's ready to pop, it's ready to snap, it's ready to break. Our attachments cause us to be so pulled tight and stressed. This falling into life, falling into abundance is trusting, but it doesn't mean doing nothing. Let's be clear on that. Falling into the flow of life doesn't mean just, oh well, just going to float down this river of life and do nothing now. No. There's nothing more active than a trained mind, Dr. Ernest Holmes said. So we are actually being very active when we are choosing to have controlled imagination, sustained attention, and inspired action. Controlled imagination. Yes, daydream, but be controlled. With that, there's where you can use the control word there. Be controlled, as in paying attention to what your intention is, paying attention to where your energy is flowing. So, really honing in on your imagination and using it constructively and sustaining the attention that you put there. This is what we talk about when we're talking about living from the end, with the end in mind, or living from the demonstration, or as Wayne Dyer said, living from the wish fulfilled, which actually came from Neville Goddard, by the way. I'm pretty sure he was the first to come up with that saying, living from the wish fulfilled. All of that takes being really focused imagination, sustained attention, and inspired action. Think about the word inspire is in spirit, right? We want our actions to be spirit-led. And that comes from being able to choose to focus what we're seeing. Stop trying to make everything fit right and see it fitting right. Because the world is lived from the inside out. Everything that you see and feel and touch was first imagined. This microphone, the chair, everything was first in thought before it was in form. So it's really important that we focus the imagination, we sustain the attention, and we live from that inspired action. Then we can do what Wallace Wattles says is cause things to be created out of this formless substance. He says it this way: man can form things in his thoughts, and by impressing his thought upon what he calls the formless original substance of energy, which forms the universe, he can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. Sure, I'll repeat that. Man can form things in his thoughts, and by impressing his thought upon what he calls the formless original substance of energy which forms the universe, he can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. That's what we're doing in this co-creation process. Abundance is our true nature. It's the true nature of the universe. The universe is prolific, and so are we. It's our true nature. So we're not falling or surrendering out there. We are falling and surrendering in here, in consciousness, to a higher idea. And how do we do that? We really do that to the best of our ability when we make a spiritual practice a priority, when we take time for prayer, meditation, being in nature, taking care of filling our cup. I love that Father Thomas Keating said, silence is God's first language. Everything else is poor translation. I'm pretty sure Rumi said something similar. But silence is God's first language. Everything else is poor translation. Silence is where we get to listen to the divine, right? We say our affirmative prayers, our affirmations. We move into the meditation, into the silence. And that's where the inspired action, that's where the inspiration comes for the inspired action, right? So let's fall into the trust of that pattern of perfection moving through everything, including this week. I have talked to so many people that are so nervous. They're so afraid about the election. They're so afraid about, I know a lot of LGBTQ people are afraid about the changes in the Supreme Court, afraid that their marriages are going to be overturned or that they won't be able to be married. I've talked to so many people who are just really stressed out about this election, and I understand it. I completely understand that this is a big deal, right? And yet, when you have that tendency to want to say, that person who believes this way is, you've heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again, it bears repeating right now. When you have that tendency to say that the other person is wrong, the other person is stupid, the other person is uneducated, the other person is ruining our world or our country, our environment, our, you name it, our democracy. Let's pause. Let's shift the tracks. Let's shift the train on the tracks, right? You know, the lever that you would push in the old days and the train would be coming and all of a sudden it would go off in a different direction. We can do that with our thoughts that create our reality. So when that tendency comes to want to focus outside of ourselves, that situation is what has control over my good. No, it doesn't. I have one source, and that source is God the good, moving through my life in all ways, always. So when you have that tendency, I'm encouraging you right here, right now to shift. Let's rise above that. Let's rise above that and choose to see a world united. Choose to see that, to trust that somehow everything is unfolding for our highest and our best good. Choose to see a world united. Affirm with me, I live in a safe universe. I live in a safe universe. I trust the good of God. I live in a safe universe, and I trust the good of God. This too is for me, and I'm open to my highest good. You see, we're shortchanging the divine when we think we know a better way than the circumstances that are unfolding, because they're just unfolding in reflection to our individual and collective consciousness. So let's shift that. Let's shift that. We're called to trust in the unseen as if it were seen. Call to trust in the unseen as if it were already seen, to see in our mind's eye and feel in our heart the wish fulfilled. That's where the work happens, the true work in consciousness. Learning to see it right instead of wasting all of our time trying to set it right. That's actually lyrics in a song, my very first New Thought song. I'm going to share with you in just a moment. That was so profound for me, because I used to, when I first heard my teacher Lisa say that, because I used to spend so much time trying to control everything to have the outcome that I wanted, instead of surrendering into the divine manifestation in consciousness, trusting in the unfolding of that, but not just visualizing. Focused imagination, sustained attention, and inspired action. We got this. Don't be afraid of an election. Don't be afraid of a Supreme Court judge. Don't be afraid. I live in a safe universe, and I trust the goodness of God. I live in a safe universe, and I trust the good of God moving through me, expressing as me and my life. Let's see, let's feel, let's co-create continually a unified world. We got this. Let's fall into that flow of life that is the abundance of a fulfilled, love-filled, purpose-filled life. And so it is.